Hi, welcome to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to continue reading from a book that I had first read in one of my earlier YouTube videos. And the book, if you recall, is called The Science of Mind. The Science of Mind. And I found this book a few years ago. Well, actually, many years ago in an old bookstore that was just down the street. And it's no longer there. I don't know where they moved to, but they had so many old used books. And if you're like me, the smell of old books is just so wonderful. I don't know what that is, especially when you open up the pages. And even though the pages are slightly yellow and brown, they all have that really subtle, rich smell of history or of time and of the past. So I said subtle and rich, and I know for some of you those two words could be opposite, but in this case there definitely is a subtle and rich quality in terms of smell from old books. I've had this book for so long and I've never really read it except for only a few chapters or skimming it through chapters. So like I said in my earlier video, I decided to read this video as part of a variety of ASMR videos, and in that way I get to read some of the content and share it with you. Now, I'm not going to start from where I left off. In fact, when I opened the book, I ended up landing on a chapter that I thought was probably a good place to start. Okay, so let's get started. This chapter is chapter 8, and it's called The Power of Thought. And this is, I guess, some of the speaking topics or reading topics that this chapter is going to cover. I guess that's what it is. So, here it is. There's going to be talk about spiritual mind healing, the basis for mental healing, the act of incarnation, activity of the one mind. It is done unto us. Thought force, the atmosphere of our thinking, inducing thought, choosing thought. Thoughts are things, one with God, the power within. We set our own limitations. And lastly, understanding. Now, I'm not sure how long this chapter is, but I'll tell you now that if it gets to be too long, I may just stop and not finish, and I'll definitely have to continue. It depends on how this chapter goes. We shall see. Okay, let's start. It has taken humanity thousands of years to learn that it has the power to control its own destiny. From the Bible we have the assurance, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. The old Greek philosophers understood something of the meaning of thought. What we expect, said Aristotle, that we find. What we wish, said Demosthenes, what we believe. And Shakespeare is accredited with a saying, there is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. It is one thing to know a principle, another to apply it. The modern commercial world accepts the slogan, he can who thinks he can. Throughout the ages, many persons have realized that causation is from within. True, the thousands of unhappy beings would indicate that a this knowledge for their benefit. Yet the day for incredulous skepticism or shallow criticism of the power of thought is past. Unless we discredit all human testimony, we are forced to the conclusion that bodily healing of all manner of sickness by mental and spiritual means is a fact. Physicians of highest repute are assiduously betaking themselves to a serious study of mental phenomena and mental processes. They are realizing the incredible possibilities of dominion resident in the dynamic forces of the mental realm. A belief in and acceptance of mental healing has arrived in the most orthodox of medical circles and is being increasingly approved as a legitimate and useful healing agent. The next section of this chapter is called The Basis for Mental Healing. Much in this field is as yet obscure and imperfectly understood, for the scientific study of mind is still in its infancy, but the fact of the misuse of mental and spiritual laws is at the root of many unhappy conditions incident to the physical life stands out clear and sharp. The first principle fundamental to the understanding of the operation of thought is that we are surrounded by an infinite intelligence. The possibility of healing physical disease, changing environment, attracting friends, and demonstrating supply to the power of right thinking rests entirely on the theory that we are surrounded by an infinite mind, which reacts to our thought according to law. We comprehend the meaning of infinite intelligence only in a small degree, but because we are spiritual beings, we do sense the presence of an intelligence which is beyond human comprehension, an intelligence which is great enough to encompass the past, to understand the present, and to be father of the future. It is the cause of everything that has been, and is that out of which must unfold everything that is to be. Our own intelligence is one of its activities, and is of like nature to it. The next section of this chapter is called The Act of Incarnation. At the level of our self-comprehension, we know and understand the nature of God. This self-knowing, which is God-knowing, has the possibility of an eternal expansion. As individual intelligence, we communicate with each other and are able to respond to each other. And in so doing, we establish the fact that intelligence responds to intelligence. This same law must hold good, whether we think of finite intelligence responding to finite intelligence, or infinite intelligence responding to finite intelligence. For intelligence is the same in essence wherever we find it. We may conclude that infinite intelligence responds to us by the very necessity of being true to its own nature. But how does it respond? It can respond only by corresponding, which means that the infinite intelligence responds to us by a direct impartation of itself through us. The highest God and the innermost God is one God. So with Jesus we must say, the Father and I are one. Whatever intelligence we possess is some degree of the one intelligence, which we call God. The infinite mind then imparts itself to the finite through the act of incarnation. The progress of the human race is a result of that process, whereby intelligence passes by successive degrees of incarnation through evolution into the human mind. The next section of this chapter is called Activity of the One Mind. We are living in an intelligent universe which responds to our mental states. To the extent that we learn to control those mental states, we shall automatically control our environment. This is why we are studying the power of thought as we approach the subject of spiritual mind healing. This is what is meant by the practical application of the science to the problems of everyday living. The result of this mental work is what is meant by demonstration. In the great universal mind, man is the center of intelligence, which he sets mind in action. Because of the oneness of mind, it cannot know anything outside itself, and therefore cannot contradict any thought given it, but must reflect whatever is cast into it. We are immersed in an infinite creative medium, which, because of its nature, must create after the pattern our thoughts gives it. Jesus understood this, and in a few simple words laid down the law of life. It is done unto you as you believe. No more simple, and yet no more profound statement could be made. The next section is called, It is done unto us. What a marvelous thought to bear in mind, that it is done unto us. We need not coerce. We do not create the power, but we must let this great power operate through us. In the infinity of mind, there is nothing but mind, and what mind does its operations. This mind is acted upon by our thought, and in this way, thought becomes the law of our lives. It is just as much a law in our individual lives as God's thought. It is in the larger life of the universe. We do not create, we use the power of the one mind, which creates for us. Our beliefs and our deep-seated convictions inevitably outpicture and reflect themselves in our experience and environment, both in the physical conditions of the body and in the larger world of our affairs. We are outwardly are, and what we are to become depends upon what we are thinking. For this is the way we are using creative power. The sooner we release our minds from the thought that we have to create, the sooner we shall be able to work in line with spirit. Always man uses, he never creates anything. The united intelligence of the human race could not make a single rosebud, but our thought, centered in mind, is using the creative power of the universe. Law of life is a law of thought, an activity of consciousness. The power flows through us. The spirit can do for us only what it can do through us. Unless we are able to provide the consciousness, it cannot make the gift. The power behind all things is without limit, but in working for us, it must work through us. Realizing then that while the power is limitless, it must become operative through our own thought. We shall see that what we need is not some greater power, but a greater consciousness, a deeper realization of life, a more sublime concept of being, a more intimate concept of being already indwelling God, who is personal to us by virtue of being personified through us. The next section of this chapter is called Thought Force. Thought force is a movement of consciousness in a field of mechanical but intelligent law. The movement of consciousness upon itself creates a motion or vibration upon substance. The force of which is equal to the embodiment of the thought set in motion. For everything that happens in the objective world, there must be something in the subjective world which perfectly balances it. Let us suppose, for illustration, that the universe is nothing but water, permeated by an infinite intelligence. Imagine that every time this intelligence moves or thinks, ice is formed in the water, exactly corresponding to the thought. We might have countless pieces of ice of different different size, but these pieces of ice could still be water. If we could heat the entire mass, it would melt and all forms would again become fluid. Nothing would have changed except form. The physical universe is spirit and form. First is intelligence, then the word, the idea, the image, the concept, then the movement toward the thing. Thought is an actual working power. Otherwise, there would be nothing by which the universe could be governed. The next section of this chapter is called the atmosphere of our thinking. We are all immersed in the atmosphere of our own thinking, which is the direct result of all that we have ever said, thought, or done. This decides what is to take place in our lives. We are drawn toward those things which we mentally image. Most of the inner processes of our thought have been unconscious. When we understand the law, we learn to consciously embody what we wish and think of this only, and then we are drawn silently toward it. The emphasis on true mental healing is insistently on God, the one mind, the one soul, the one being, ever present and ever available, and on man's ability and right to make himself receptive to this healing presence. A realization of the essence of this essential divinity of our own nature, and a truth that no evil can live in this presence. We must unify ourselves with the great whole. The man who dares to fling his thought out into universal intelligence with the assurance of one who realizes this divine nature and its relation to the universe, and dares to claim all there is, will find an ever creative good at hand to aid him. God will honor his request to the soul that knows its own divinity. All else must gravitate. Let us then enlarge our thought processes and dare to think in universal terms. Let us dare to believe that every constructive word is invincible. Okay, the next section is called Inducing Thought. That which thought has done, thought can undo. Lifelong habits of wrong thinking can be consciously and deliberately neutralized. An entirely new order of mental and emotional reaction established in mind. Merely to abstain from wrong thinking is not enough. There must be active right thinking. Did you hear that? I'll say it again. There must merely to abstain from wrong thinking is not enough. There must be active right thinking. We must become actively constructive and happy in our thinking, not merely passively so. New and wholesome ideas of life, vitality, and hope must be accepted and incorporated into substratum of our mental life, so that a more wholesome externalization may manifest in our body, condition, and environment. Since we must all begin right where we are, most of us will be compelled to begin our healing work with a mechanical process. We should take the highest thought we have and attempt to enlarge on this consciousness until it embraces a more vital concept of reality. Consciousness in this sense means an inner embodiment of ideas. If one wishes to demonstrate prosperity, he must first have a consciousness of prosperity. If he wishes health, he must embody the idea of health. This is more than faith. It is the knowledge that we are dealing with law. While a certain consciousness may be mechanically induced, of course, the more spontaneity put into the mechanical word, the more power the word must have. The next section of this chapter is called Choosing Thought. We cannot live a choiceless life. Every day, every moment, every second, there is a choice. If it were not so, we would not be individuals. We have the right to choose what we wish to experience. We have the right to choose the kind of companions with whom we wish to associate, to say in what city and in what type of house else we would like to live. We are individuals, and the only way we can be individuals is to be spontaneous. There is no such thing as a mechanistic individuality. It must have the essential elements of spontaneity. There is no spontaneity and no individuality without prerogative. There can be no choice unless there is something from which to choose. Otherwise, the ability to choose would be merely a fantasy. Therefore, there must be not only the possibility of choice, but the liability of experiencing that which is chosen. We have a right to choose what we shall induce in mind. The way in which our thoughts are to become manifest, we cannot always see, nor should we be disturbed what we do not see. The way, because effect is potential in cause. I am Alpha and Omega, and all that comes between cause and effect. Cause and effect are really one, and if we have given cause set in motion, the effect will have to equal the cause. One is the inside and the other the outside of the same thing. A certain specific intelligent idea in mind will produce a certain specific concrete manifestation equal to itself. There is one infinite principle, one infinite thought stuff, one infinite creative power, but countless numbers of forms, which changes as the special idea behind them changes. The next section of this chapter is called Thoughts Are Things. Health and sickness are largely externalizations of our dominant mental and spiritual states. An emotional shock or a mind filled with thoughts of fear has been known to cause the momentary stoppage or acceleration of the heart. Physicians now testify that under emotional stress, particularly anger, the blood leaves a chemical deposit around the joints in the body. Worry, fear, anger, jealousy, and other emotional conditions are mental in their nature, and as such are being recognized as the hidden cause of a large part of all the physical suffering in which the flesh is air. A normal, healthy mind reflects itself in a healthy body, and conversely, an abnormal mental state expresses its corresponding condition in some physical condition. Thoughts are things. Modern psychology affirms that all the thoughts and emotions we have experienced since we came into conscious existence are still present in mind. Where ceaselessly active, they manifest themselves as subjective tendencies that mold a body in health or sickness, and determine as well our reactions to all life and experience. We do not maintain that this or that specific disease is always the result of thinking about such a condition, but we do assert that a prolonged discordant mental state is certain to eventuate in some form of physical ailment. People have died of great grief, of broken hearts, of outbursts of temper, of deep and continued resentment, of excessive worry, and many other mental states in which there was no specific thought of sickness at all. The point to remember is that all mind activity inevitably tends to create its physical correspondent, so that an unhealthful and morbid mental state projects itself into the physical body. Thoughts are things. They have the power to objectify themselves. Thought lays hold of causation and forms real substance. The word of man is the law of his life, under the one great law of all life. Thoughts of sickness can make a man sick, and thoughts of health and perfection can heal him. Thought is the conscious activity of the one thinking, and works as he directs through law, and this law may be consciously set in motion. This law will work for him to the fullest extent of this belief, and an understanding of it. A realization of the presence of God is the most powerful healing agency known to the mind of man. Okay, I will stop here. I hope you enjoy the read, and it might seem heavy to some people, or are some concepts that are really interesting and needs time to wrap our heads around. So I'll probably continue this tomorrow. And with that said, it's time to go to sleep. Okay. Thank you for visiting and stopping by and listening. And I hope my whispers gave you tingles. Alright. Good night. Good night.